Welcome to Lab 7. In Lab 7 we're going to code those door buttons in the start room so that they'll go in the line room and the penguin room. Be sure you're opening the right folder. We want to be opening the FLA file, not the SWF file. If things happen in Flash, they're called events. Okay, some events are called by the system itself, such as a movie or a game that starts or ends. Some are caused by the user. User clicks on something, or he causes an event to happen in some way. In our case, we're going to have him click on the door to have it go to the next room. To make an event happen, we have to do it in code. So we use what's called an event handler. It just tells Flash what to do if an event takes place. They have three parts. First, you have a target path. Target path just tells Flash what the event is for. The event type tells Flash what type of an event the code is for. Is it a mouse click? Is it a keyboard press? And finally, the function tells the Flash what to do when the event happens. In this case, go to the lion room. So what we're going to do in this particular lab is code our first event handler. We're going to tell the start door 1 when it's clicked to go to and stop at the lion room. On release means that the mouse button is pressed and released. The function lists of events that happens when that event runs. Go to and stop is a function that moves the game into the next room. Now we're going to add our event handler. So what I'm going to do is lock all my buttons here, and I'm going to unlock my code, and I'm going to click in my first box here. So I know that I'm selecting this in my actions frame. Okay, after the stop command here, I'm going to go a couple lines. And I'm going to do this exactly the way the example says. It says start door 1. Now if you haven't named start door 1 correctly, like they told you to, it's not going to work. So make sure that you named this door what you were supposed to. Capitalize the way you're supposed to, underscore the way you were supposed to. If you didn't, go back and do it now, because your code won't work. Start, underscore, capital door, underscore 1. That identifies the door. Now I'm going to tell it to do the mouse. Click on release. On, capital R-E-L-E-A-S-E. See, it turned blue. That means I did it right. So I'm going to go equals function. So now I'm going to tell it what I want it to do when it clicks the mouse, right? I put my brackets there, and I do my curly brace, my beginning curly brace. I come down a couple lines, and I have my ending curly brace. I'm going to come back up in between, and I'm going to put my command. I want the player to go to and stop in the lion's room. So I'm going to go to. Now capitalize A for and, capitalize S for stop. Where is he go? See, it turned blue, so that was done right. I'm going to put around the parentheses around, and I'm going to put lion room. Now this has to be done right too. Lion underscore capital room. So make sure you're following through and naming these things what they should be named. And then coming to the end, I'm putting a semicolon at the end of my command here. Now make sure that you've got that closing bracket. I shouldn't have two. I should just have one. So now, just to double check, I pulled my action frame off my program, and I double checked it with the example here to make sure I was right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the syntax. Now I want to remind you that you have an exception here. This syntax checker is correct for Flash CS4. If you have Flash CS5, Flash CS 5.5, or Flash CS6, you need to read these separate instructions about checking your syntax. So what does it mean to check your syntax? Well, syntax is just a bunch of rules for grammar, for spelling, and punctuation. Okay? So if you make a mistake, your code is not going to run correctly, so what you do is check your syntax. And I'll show you the special case of checking your syntax in CS5. Now, what does it say here? You can add or remove line breaks, but it's a good practice to put each statement on its own line. Right? Another thing that's a good idea to do is to format your own code. See, now here they're showing you that you have things between the curly braces. It's a good idea to indent it in. It's easier to read so you know what's going on. You can see if you're faithful to indent your code properly, you won't get lost as easily. One thing your syntax checker will look for is to make sure you have an opening and closing curly brace pairs. You can't have just one. What's in between here groups a bunch of code together. So it's very important that you keep your pairs together. That's why as soon as we make this one, we create that one so we don't lose a syntax. We don't lose a curly brace. You always put the opening curly brace at the end of the line, and usually you put the closing curly brace on its own line. Sometimes we have a function, like go to and stop is a function. We have a parameter for that function. So in this particular case, we're telling the go to and stop, we're telling it where to go to and stop. So that's called the parameter. Like curly braces, every parentheses must have an opening and closing parentheses. So now, like I told you, I have Flash CS5. So when I click the check the syntax, I'm not going to get any dialog box up. What I got to do is I got to check the timeline to see if there's any errors reported. So looking down at my timeline, I have no errors reported, so I have no errors. But you would have something reported here. Let me show you what that would look like. Let me take away one of my closing curly brace here and run the checker. Let me show you. Now see that? That's what happens. It tells you that that there's a missing curly brace. So I'll add it back. See, this was where it will show up where the timeline is. See that? So if you have an error, that's where your error code is going to show up. And I'll just run it one more time. And it's corrected that. I click back on timeline. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my code. I'm going to hold down the control key, click enter. Now I click that button to see it went to the other room. So it did, so I'm fine. Okay, if your code didn't work, make sure that when you clicked on frame 2, it said lion room. See capital L, capital R with an underscore. Okay, another thing that you can check is click here on the buttons for the first frame here. Click in the gray area, then click on the door and make sure it says start door 1. Capital S start underscore capital D underscore 1. Another thing you can check is over here in your library. Make sure you have a button that says start underscore door underscore 1 underscore button. Just right click this and see where it says rename it the way it's supposed to be. Okay, when you fix this, you can go do your control enter again and you should be able to get into the lion room. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put code start door 2. What I do is I highlight this, right click copy, I click enter a couple times and I right click paste. So I changed start door 1 to start door 2. I have it stop at the penguin room. Okay, so make sure it looks like this. You have one statement, two statements, okay? So now I check my syntax. I click my check syntax button. And I see nothing written down here. Once again, if I had something written down here that was an error, I would just fix the error and run my code again. So now I'm going to run the code. Do my control enter. And now I click the right door and it should go to the penguin room. Okay, what do you do if it didn't? Well, first off, you check your action menu. And that's why I have this actions frame undocked, because I just pulled this down and then I just check my action, this against this. If there's a correction there I need to make. Another thing you can do is if it's not working, click on frame 3, make sure it's called penguin room, capital P, capital R with an underscore. Make sure it's spelled right. There's no E in penguin. So if that's okay, then you check over here. You go back to your buttons on your first screen. Click in your gray area, click on your door, and it should say Start Door 2. Make sure it's right. Capital letters and with your underscores. No spaces. Make sure you have a button in here that's called Start Door 2 button, just like that. Once you've corrected all your code, it should run again. So now you're done with Lab 7. Make sure that your room moves to the lion room when you click the left door and the penguin room when you move to the right door. Lock the code layer, make sure all the other layers are locked, and save your file. Welcome to Lab 8. What we're going to do is we're going to code the rest of the buttons in the game in Lab 8. Okay, we've named our door instances. Now we need to name our button instances. We have 2 play again buttons that take us back to the first screen and 1 back button that takes us, well, basically that takes us back to the first screen as well. But it just takes you back 1. Now we're going to name our buttons. So I'm going to lock my code layer and unlock my buttons layer. And I'm going to go to frame 2. Now I'm going to name this back instance back. So I just click instance name. I want to use it in my code, right? Got to name it. So I just type in back, then I click enter. Now I got to go to frame 4. Frame 4, I'm going to name this play again button. So I click here. Click the instance name and put in play again. Now no spaces. Last year when I made this game, I went buggy trying to find my mistake. Why I couldn't get this to play again. What I did was I made a space after the play again. So make sure that you're really being careful when you name your names here. And so now I'm going to go into this frame here, 5th frame, and I'm going to name this one play again. So that one gets named in the coding as well. Now we're going to go code the back button. So I'm going to lock my button layer here. I'm going to unlock my code layer. And I'm going to go in my frame 2 here. I'm going to click on my back button. Now I'm going to go into my project copy code. And I'm going to go find Lab 8, code the back button, step 4. So I'm going to start from line 33 with stop, go all the way to line 37. Make sure you're starting with 33. Make sure you get that last curly brace. Right click copy. I click back into the Zoo Escape, come back into my action frame, and I right click paste. Right? So now I test my code. Click my syntax button. I have no error codes down here, so it looks good. So now I'm going to run my Control Enter. So now I click on the door to go to the lion's room. Now I check back. Make sure it comes back to this room. If your code didn't work, make sure you got it all the way from the stop to the last curly brace. This code is very similar to the code you did before, except it's not the door, it's the back button, see? Okay, some other things you can try if your code isn't working. Click on the first frame here under background, make sure it's called Start Room without any spaces. Then make sure you did the back button right, okay? Click on unlock that buttons. Click on the second one and make sure it's capital back. You don't have an extra space in there. Now I'm going to code the penguin room door, so I go in the penguin room, the third one in, and I go into my AES copy code, and let me copy all this code. See, it starts at stop on 41 and goes all the way to 49, the last curly brace. So let's do this. Start at stop, come down to that last curly brace, right click copy. Back in the penguin room, I put the action frames back. I'm going to right click copy, or right click paste rather. Make sure it's all there from stop to the last curly brace. Now I can test out my door. I'll click on my penguin door, and I click on one penguin room, it goes there. I'm going to try the other door. There you go. Now if you made a mistake, check your code with their code. So you just pull this away, double check, see if everything you have here is everything they've got here. Now if you couldn't get in the B room, make sure you spelled B room, and there's no extra spaces in here, just capital B room with an underscore. If you couldn't get into the escape room, make sure this was labeled right, escape room with an underscore, no space, and double check that one. If that didn't work, unlock your buttons here, go into your penguin room, click in the gray area, click on the door, make sure it's spelled right, penguin door run, no E and no extra space. Then click on the gray area again, click the other door, make sure that one's spelled right. Okay, that should fix it. And once again, you make sure that your penguin doors, you have penguin door 1 button and penguin door 2 button here, and make sure they're spelled right and they're just like this. You can always right click these and redo them. There's no issue really with those. Now we're going to code the B room button, so I'm going to go in the B room. Okay, what I do is I unlock the code layer, come here, and I'm going to do my play again button. So I click here in my code layer, layer 4. I paste in my action panel the code, and I double check it with what I've written on, with what's written down here. Make sure I've got it all. Then I make sure that I check my syntax. I don't have any error code up here, so it's fine. So I run my code. I click on my door. I click on my B room door. I try my play again button. It should go back to the beginning. Okay, one mistake you could have made is that you might have done the play again button wrong. Make sure there's no extra space in here. Make sure you have the underline and the capitalization right. Now I'm going to copy this same code here and I'm going to put it on this last frame here. Now I'm going to put it on the last frame here. I already have it copied from before, but if you don't, you can always go back into the copy code and copy it again. So now I just run my code, see if it runs right. I click my door again, and I try my play again button, see if it takes me back to the beginning. If it doesn't, once again I check this code. I just double check to make sure I did this one right. No spaces, capitalization, I got the underscore. And see how important it is to do things the same way that in the coding as well as in the naming. You just got to be careful. So now if all my buttons in the game work correctly, I can lock my code layer, save my file, and I can move on to Lab 9. Okay, Lab 9, what I'm doing is I'm making a title screen for the game and publishing it. So what are you going to put in the title screen? Well, you know, title screens, you have what's supposed to be an exciting picture, right? Name of the game, might have some instructions here. Or, you know, might tell you what the game's all about. Now I'm going to do this. So I'm going to click on my edit menu. I'm going to go to timeline, select all frames. Drag them over one frame, and then it leaves me a column with blank keyframes in it. So now I'm going to unlock the background layer, go to that first frame. I'm going to go find title background. Then I'm going to drag that and drop that on my stage. I'm going to click Window Align. Then I'm going to align it to the left and align it to the top. And I'll just close that out. So now I'm going to lock the background layer, unlock the buttons layer. I'm going to click on my first buttons frame. So I'm going to go find my start button. I'm going to drag it onto my, wherever I want to put it, right? And put it right there. So now I'm going to lock that buttons layer, and I unlock the text layer. I click on my first frame there. And I'm going to go find my title text. And I'm going to go drag that where I want it to go. And I can double click and color it up if I want to. Double click it. And click on color. Pick me a color. Woo! There we go. Now I just click my get out of there, and I'll just lock my text box. Now I want to come down to my buttons, and I want to name, put this selection tool back up here. I want to name this button here. Click Start, instance name, I want to call this Start. No spaces. So I'm going to lock this layer, and I'm going to unlock my code layer. I click in frame 1. I'm going to go into my Project 1 copy code, and I'm going to code the start button. I can start at stop, Go all the way down to that curly bracket from 61 to 65, right click copy, come back out, right click paste, and check my syntax. Everything's fine. I'm going to try and run my game. Click my start button, see if it works. It worked. If it didn't work, I check my code, make sure I got everything all the way down last curly brace. If it didn't work, make sure you named it, your button right. Made sure you named it start, like that. Okay, when you're going to be sending me 3 different files. When you finish this game, you're going to be sending me your FLA file, your HTML file, and your SWF file. Your FLA file is your Flash project file. You can't open your Flash project, your FLA file, without having Flash. Okay, your HTML file, that's your standard web file. It has HTML file extension, so anybody can open it up if you have a web browser. Okay, your SWF file is your Shockwave Flash file. It's anybody who has a Flash player can play an SWF file. Okay, if you're ready to publish your file, just go File, Publish Settings. Make sure you have a check mark in SWF and HTML. Now, you're not always going to see this, because if you have 5.5, it looks a little bit different, but make sure you go where you can find you have a SWF and HTML file, and then just click Publish. So if you make further changes to your FLA file, it'll also make changes to your corresponding SWF and your HTML file. So you can open up your project folder and click your ZooEscape HTML, and you can play that. I should just play like my SWF file. I just click and click and click and whatever. That's it. So once you're done with this, you're through with Lab 9. Make sure your game works correctly. Now comes the challenge part. Now, I know you special ed kids don't have to do this. Everybody else ought to try at least another room or two. Okay? So we continue on with the challenge. So now I'm going to add my challenge. I'm going to change the name slightly. Go File, Save As, go ZooEscape 2. Now I'm going to go click frame 5 and drag all the way down and copy 5 and 6. And right click, copy frames. So now I'm going to hold the control key and select all these. And I right click and click paste frames. I'm going to call the new frame 5 Shark Room. And I'm going to call the new frame 6 Butterfly Room. Butterfly Room. So now I'm going to go on frame 5. I'm going to unlock that. Press delete on my keyboard. Come up here, find my shark. Well, actually, I have to go up here to additional rooms, get my shark. Drag my shark background on there. And now I just align it to the stage. Go Window, Align. And I click Align to the left and align to the top. And close it out. Now I'm going to go change room 6. Click in room 6. Click there, delete it. And I'm going to put the butterfly background in. Then I'm going to line it up. Windows align. Left and top. So now I'm going to lock this layer. I'm going to open up my button layer. And I'm going to delete this play again button. Let's click it, click delete. And I'm going to add butterfly doors. Butterfly door 1 and butterfly door 2. And I'll call this one instance butterfly door 1. Now click on this one, butterfly door 2. Butterfly door 2. So now I'm going to lock my buttons layer, and I'm going to unlock my code layer, and I'm going to go to frame 4, my penguin code, and I'm going to copy all that. Right click copy. So now I'm going to go to frame 6. I'm going to delete what's in there. Go Control A for all. Click delete. Then Control V for paste. So I'm going to paste everything that was in there and there. So now I'm going to change penguin door 1 and penguin door 2 to butterfly door 1 and butterfly door 2. So now I'm going to change the code on 4 to go to the butterfly room and the shark room. Butterfly room instead of B room, shark room. So now you don't have to change anything on 5. They'll just terminate the game on frame 5. So I'm just going to close this out, and we're going to go and we're just change some of the text. I'm going to go on our new rooms 5, and I'm going to come on down, and we're going to change this. So I lock my code layer. I'm going to go to my text layer, and I'm going to change it to whatever I want it to say. I click my text tool. So I went ahead and changed this text to read on 5. Oh no, not sharks, get me out of here. So I go on to 6. I click text again and select 6, what I want to change on 6. So I just changed those and let's say butterflies are so peaceful, you'd love to stay, but you need to find the eggs. So now I lock the text layer and I test my game. There you go, that's the game. And you're done.